Okay, I'll try to project out so you can hear me. Thank you for being here. Full disclosure, I mainly work in banking and finance. And so I'm used to not talking to the creative bunch. So as I was building this presentation, I kept having to readjust my mindset and think no, this is going to be a new audience for you. So we're going to talk about vision. And by the way, when you're given 20 minutes and a word, do you know how many things come to mind? You're creatives, you know that, right? So where are we going to go with this today? Oops, I can't see. Okay, there we go. All right, so what is vision? We're going to start there. And then I just want to touch on vision as a leader, because I know many of you in here are leaders. It's going to connect right into vision for you as an individual, and then we're going to wrap it up, because this is going to go by fast, okay? So let's start with what is vision. All right, I'm going to pull out all the definitions. These were my choices, right, as I got the word vision. So the faculty or state of being able to see. And since I'm not an optometrist, I decided to pass on that one, okay? Number two, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Maybe that's sounding like we're in the ballpark, okay? An experience of seeing someone or something in a dream or trance or as a supernatural apparition. I mean, yeah, that could be fun, right? I hear some yeses, okay? Maybe I should have done this as a vote. Let's do this extemporaneously. All right. A person or a site of unusual beauty. We're going to flash up. Oh, yeah, thank you, Leon. Stop it some more, please. Yeah. But I actually decided to go with my favorite one. The vision. No, that's not what we're going to talk about this morning. Just make it, is everybody paying attention? Okay. Yeah, this was the good morning check. No, although that would be fun, that is not what we're going to do. Okay, so we are going to go back to this thinking about or planning the future with imagination and wisdom. All right. And as we pause for a minute, and by the way, I have zero expertise in that superhero, so that was, totally a joke. Imagination and wisdom, it's not a combination we often think of together. So that definition right away connected. How do we do that? I kind of love this combo, right? It's a little bit of an odd combo, imagination and wisdom. We don't often see those together, especially in the fields that I typically work in. But it is what comes together to create vision. And how important is vision as a leader, right? So we hear it, and I'll be honest, vision can seem a little scary to me. Growing up in the business world, they would always be like, well, we have to work on a vision statement. And I was like, seems a little woo-woo. How do we get a one statement that wraps up our whole vision? And how do we come to agree on that? And I didn't know how to wrap my arms around that. As I've grown into different roles over time, you find out that yes, you can get better at it, but how necessary is it? How important is vision as a leader? Well, I'm going to reference one of my jobs is I work with an agency that we do leadership development, change management, executive coaching. So I am a certified executive coach. I'm certified in a handful of personality inventories, and it's an area of work that I love. And this is one of our favorite resources. It's called the Leadership Challenge. And they studied leaders across decades and around the globe, and they're still doing it. And what they do is they go out and say, what are the most important characteristics of leaders that are withstanding of time? And so there are 5 of them. Model the way is number 1, meaning, the proverbial do what I say, not what I do. Nope, this is say do what I do, right? As a good leader, you need to model the way. 2, challenge the process. Don't just be comfortable with the status quo. Number 3, enable others to act. You should hire people for a good reason. They should bring their own expertise and let them shine and do their thing. Number 4 is here's some more of this again in the finance world, this woo-woo stuff. Encourage the heart as a leader. Yes, we need people to feel cared about and authentic to who they are in their workplace. And then you guessed it, look what's up there. And by the way, these are not in an order. They are all equally important here. But inspire a shared vision. There's that word. So how do we do this if we need to inspire a shared vision? We know it's important. It's in the top 5 things over decades and around the globe. So we've identified that. So again, what are you going to do next? What happens? Can we actually get better at creating vision? And the answer, of course, is yes. I hope you catching on to that. That's why we're here today. And yet, when we ask leaders, how do you describe inspiring this shared vision? And they say things like, well, it's about a feeling or a sense or a gut instinct. Again, this is not helpful for those of us that like process, right? How do we get our arms around this? There's often no explicit logic to it. They just feel strongly about something, and that intuitive sense must be strongly explored. So, I mean, come on, there's no explicit logic. It's basically telling you like, hey, put something structural around something that is very hard to grasp. So, what would they tell us to do about it? They will walk you through, and by the way, they have a workbook because we don't have time. Wouldn't it be fun if we could just do a whole vision session right now and I could have you all build one out? That would be lovely. But they would walk you through as a leader, and again, there are other models. This is just one that we tend to lean towards. We really like it. Articulate your personal vision of the future for the members of your team. Now, there's a little hint to where we're going because that says personal, right? Bless you. So, engage your team members in dialogue about their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Who's surprised by that one as a leader? That in order to get a vision for the company, you have to connect with each of your individuals' hopes, dreams, and aspirations. When people know what that is for themselves and they can bring that to work, you will multiply. We're going to talk about this again a little later, but it will multiply itself in positive ways. Whenever you make someone step outside of that natural ability of who they are and their hopes, dreams, and aspirations, it becomes draining. When we plug into it, right, it becomes elevated. That's why I love when we were up here this morning and you kept talking about, this is my favorite part, and this is my favorite part. We've got some good alignment there. You should have multiple favorite parts. So that was lovely. All right, enlist others towards a common vision. So now that we've learned what everybody wants and we're looking towards it, how do we bring others in? And then how do we communicate that vision? And look at these words they use, in an attractive and appealing way, all right? So it's not just about, I get it and I'm passionate about it. If you can't bring others to it as a leader, it's not gonna serve you well. So it's also why we have to learn what's important to others to make it attractive and appealing to them. So if this framework feels helpful to you, you can, there it goes. Check out their workbook, right? It will walk you through this. And by the way, I don't work for them. I'm not getting any commissions. But that's my quickest way to wrap up this slide as far as like, I can't take you through it, but we do want to dip that in there. So let's focus on this first one because it is step one. And there's a key word in there. Articulate your personal vision of the future. So even as a leader, you have to start with yourself, right? If you're leading that organization, it has to come from, what do I believe in? What do I want to create around? What do I want this vision to be aiming at? So starts with the personal vision. And I want us to look at some of these words. And oftentimes in society today, leaning on these words is actually frowned upon, right? If you're talking to someone, you're like, I don't know, it's just my instinct. I just have intuition about this. I have a hunch. I'm sure you've heard someone say, well, we're not making a decision on a hunch. I would totally disagree with that. You should absolutely listen to all of these voices and connect with them because they're there for a reason. There's so much more work going on about the gut brain. I'm sure some of you have heard about that. So it's a very real thing, and that's what is talking to you. So if you have some of these things, like, I don't know, I just have an instinct for it, intuition for it, try to magnify that voice for yourself. All right, now all that sounds great, but for those of you that, again, need a little more process, it still doesn't tell us what to do about it. So I have this inner voice, but, what next? And I'm going to pause and take a pivot here because there's some of you in the room that might be thinking, this is so obvious and easy, okay? Gallup, the Clifton Strengths, for those of you that are familiar with this, Gallup studies what goes well with people. It's in the area of positive psychology, which I'm going to touch on here again in a minute. But one of the talents that people have is actually futuristic. And if you look right in the definition of futuristic, people exceptionally talented in this area are inspired by the future and what it could be, and they energize others with their visions for the future. So yes, there are people out there, this is how they think and breathe throughout every single day. Now, he's going to be embarrassed. My husband happens to be here. Futuristic is his number one. Okay, this is how he goes through life without even having to think about it. There are 34 talents in Gallup. It is my 33rd. Okay, so this is not. So you might be thinking maybe he should be up here instead of me. But I'm here to say this. Okay, have you ever heard of the term fish discover water last? Okay. When something is so inherent to who we are, it's hard to even recognize it as a talent. And then it's really difficult to tell someone else how to tap into it or get better at it because we just instinctively know it. And so that's why I think I am the better person to be up here today. No, that's just some self-fulfilling prophecy, hopefully. Okay, so if this comes very naturally to you, one of the things I want you to take away from this slide is that is rare air for you. So bring that to others. This is your gift. If this is how you speak, help others understand that and help bring them along, because recognize that there are many of us out there. By the way, context is my last, which is looking back. So if you want a girl that's in the moment, I don't look forward, or I'm just like here with you right now, okay? This is the quote that they use: the best way to predict your future is to create it. I feel like that was very appropriate for this morning's audience, right? So, but if you're more like me, vision might feel like this. I have a ton of thoughts, right? I have all of these instincts. I don't know what to do with it. And it starts to feel a little overwhelming. I think that's why I said earlier that, when I was told to build a vision statement, it just felt too big for me to even feel like I could wrap my brain around. So what do we do with that if you need to start your own personal vision? Well, let's start with something very small, okay? So you can start with a vision that is really narrow. It can just be one action, one area, or one thought even. So it can be, have you ever heard of the good old just one trick? Like, someone needs to go start cleaning up a room, and you trick yourself into saying, I'm just going to pick up one thing. And then you pick up that one thing. You're like, well, I could probably do 2 or 3 more, right? And at least gets you started. And you give yourself permission to abandon it when you're ready to abandon it, but at least you got some things done. You can start that way with vision, right? Just one small area. It can be, you don't have to tackle the big important one first. You can build up to that, okay? Number 2, good old neuroplasticity, okay? The neuroscience portion. No, we're not going to go deep in that. But your brain is like any other muscle, and you can train it to do new things. So if you start trying to do this and it feels hard, imagine yourself starting to work out or do a new, physical activity, and it's hard for you the first time you do it, and you're sore afterwards, and you may not think you want to do it again. And yet over time, it does become easier. So imagine that same thing happening in your brain. You are literally, this neural pathway is completely overgrown with huge tall weeds, grass, and trees, and you are trying to take a mower or a trimmer through it. You may only get so far, but you've cleared off that much of the path. And the next time you dip back in to trying to create this vision for yourself, you'll have some familiarity and you'll be able to get a little bit farther. All right. Focus on what you want more of. We were actually having a conversation about this morning, and it comes up a lot. But whenever someone is trying to envision something new or going through a big change, what they tend to do is focus on what they don't want first. Okay, well, we don't want to do this, and we don't want to do that, and we have too much of this. That's going to send you, that's actually putting focus on the things you don't want. Okay, so anytime we're working with a group, a person, an organization that is going through change, we start with, what are you already doing really well? Okay? Ground yourself in what you know, what you already excel at, and use that as your foundation to build off of, versus here's all the things that are going wrong and we need to fix, and that's why we need this new vision. So you've all heard the proverb of the which wolf is going to, you have 2 wolves here and you have a choice of which one to feed, which one's going to grow, the one you feed more, right? And that's about thoughts. It can be there's all kinds of principles about it, but you attract, if you have the thought when you're driving, don't get in a crash, don't get in a crash, don't get in a crash, your brain hears crash, 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 okay? So you need to think, I'm a safe driver. It's about flipping that language to what's good and what you want more of. So just watch for that language, even internally for your own self, as you're trying to create these things. Flip it around to what you want more of. 2 of my favorite questions when we're working in this space: what else might be true? There have been times when I am coaching people, and for myself going through coaching, where people just feel like there are no options. They will say, I have been thinking about this for years, and there's no other option for me. And you just say, well, let's just sit with that and see what other doors we might find. And sure enough, there are always more doors, windows, crawl spaces, attics, whatever we might find in our brain to go and explore. And then number 2, the second favorite question on here, but if anything was possible. How often do we pause and allow ourselves to think, if anything was possible, what might I go after and what might be true? And there's a reason we want you to really take the boundaries off. It doesn't mean, we don't want you to stick with the practical or the real when you're trying to create this vision for yourself. We want you to start somewhere huge and see where it leads you. You need to open up your mind into that space. All right, time check. We're good, right? Okay. We have like 3 more slides left, so this is going to be good. And then we can have questions if there's any. Right? We're gonna land this plane right on time. Okay. I'm going to get you to your destination 2 minutes early. All right. So for vision as an individual, there are some things that really will help connect you to this. The first one is meditation. If you've never done it before, there are plenty of apps out there that you can connect with and lean into, but it's about how do I create a quiet space for me to even just hear myself, right? To just let everything, shut down and connect with what is left when it's there. So meditation is one of the first things. A little more technical here. There is a theory, I'll call it out there, a practice called appreciative inquiry, and it is also based in positive psychology. You've heard me use that term a couple of times. Psychology for many decades was always focused on the deficits in people, and that is a very important area of study. But it wasn't until the last handful of decades where people started to say, but wait, what also if we looked at what happens when people are thriving and when things are going really well? If we plug into that, what do we get more of? And so everything that in the firm that I work with, everything we do is based in positive psychology. And appreciative inquiry is about creating upward spirals of energy, okay? So let's just say that you, as a leader, you've had turnover in your staff. You come in each morning and you go, we got to solve this turnover. Why did that person leave? Why did this person leave? And you're focusing on all of the things that have gone wrong. And if you pause, that's creating a downward spiral of energy, right? Like, oh my gosh, someone quit again. And by the way, I don't know if you could sense this, but downward spirals of energy spread and catch very quickly, okay? So if we shift that and we say, okay, we've had turnover, but guess what? Maybe we've had 3% turnover. What does that mean? That means 97% of our people are still here. Why don't we go look at those 97% and try to get more of that? So it's attacking the same problem, but creating an upward spiral of energy by focusing on what's going right. So as you're looking at your vision, when you pause and you think there's this issue I need to overcome, what's the flip side of that coin? Right? What's the really good thing that's connected to that may be your fish in the water? You just don't see it because it's been so around you. So creating these upward spirals of energy as you're going into this, if you feel it going down, it's a pause. And okay, how do I shift this? Where's the upward momentum I can create out of it? And then the third one is this executive coaching. And it can be life coaching, personal coaching. One of the things that many people don't know about true executive coaching is that executive coaches should actually give you zero advice. Okay? So if you're ever engaging with an executive coach and they come to you with a list of advice, they probably aren't, many of you maybe didn't even know that there is a certification for actual executive coaches. But here's why this is important, especially as you're trying to create your vision. Any of you in life probably are struggling to find someone to talk with that doesn't have an opinion about what it is you're bringing to them. It could be a parent, a significant other, a child, a friend, a coworker, a boss, an employee. They all have their own lens that they bring to it. And they are either trying to influence you by just being supportive of you, like, oh, they're the boss, I should just approve whatever they say. Or they, if it's my mom, she cares about me. So she thinks everything, I should get every bonus that there ever was, and I should win every award that there ever is. And that's not helpful either, because that's not realistic. It comes from a great place. But once you start to see this, that every conversation you have, that person you're having with has a lens on it, you realize there are very few spaces you can go to talk to someone where their only goal is that you are satisfied with that conversation. So as an executive coach, when we show up, I always tell my clients, it is your time, okay? So whatever you bring to this, so if you're trying to get connected to a vision with yourself, finding a space like that where you give yourself permission to talk through anything, no matter how absurd or unhinged. I often say to coaching clients, what would you have wanted to say in that moment if there were no repercussions? This is the safest space to just spit it out. Just own it and say it. Move it through your brain path. And sometimes we call it name it to tame it. When you can say it, you move it from that emotion center of the brain and it comes out the other side. So when you get a chance to say it, people will often just come out with stuff and then they'll go, oh, I would have actually never said that, right? But at least they've pushed through it and identified it. So as you're trying to create a vision for yourself, you will need a space where you have someone that can be your sounding board that has zero impact on your decision. So, and I shouldn't say zero impact, I need to say the way, no opinion. They're not trying to sway it in any way other than what's important to you. So as executive coaches, we're trained to listen for a change in tone, in facial expression, in demeanor, and posture, in pitch, and we take classes that are titled like questioning and awakening, right? Yeah, whole classes on this. So they're there to just say, I'm just trying to tap into what's important to you, and that's all that matters. And then again, when a client comes back for a second session, I never say, well, let's wrap up session one. No, I don't. It's not mine to wrap up. It's theirs. And so anyway, it should just be this thought partner space where you get a safe sounding board to run through anything you need to. And the amount of vision that opens up, I'm going to give you one example really quickly. There was a gentleman that I was coaching, and he was born in Australia, had lived in England, and was now working in Austin. And he was really trying to decide, he had a young family, had an infant son, and if he and his wife and son should move back to Australia or stay in Austin. And he was super analytical. So he made pro-cons lists of this to the nth degree. Here's what I should do, here's what I shouldn't do. And as he's trying to create this vision for his personal life, right? This is his personal vision. I just said to him in this call, okay, let's pretend like you are in Austin and you found that perfect home. You got to it before it went on the market, and you're getting in that real estate game, and it's a great deal, and it's in the best school district, and you're planted there, and your kid is out playing in the yard. How do you feel? And he goes, trapped. Right? And all of a sudden he went, oh my gosh. So he'd done all of this work on it, but he hadn't paused in a safe space where with someone who did not care at all whether he moved or did not move. I don't have any vested interest in this. And all of a sudden, when he just asked himself the most basic question, he had the answer right there. So that's the power of how quickly you can tap into something maybe you've been missing when you give yourself that open space as an individual. Once you do that, then that's when you can start to articulate something to a group. We can't get to vision as a leader unless we can really connect to it personally. Okay, so to wrap up here, there is no right way to create a vision. So you have to do it, again, lean into the hunch or the instinct or the intuition for what works for you. Intentional engagement can create improvement. So give yourself grace as you first start to do this. Own the illogical. It may feel irrational. You saw how many times we talk about illogical, irrational. And you can land at something that feels very rational and logical in the end. And then try to find calm in the process. When you are hitting on the minute that gentleman said, right, I'd feel trapped, there was also calm that came with that because he finally knew, right? He had opened that door to something that he couldn't find, that door that he didn't think existed, that there was no right answer. He had found it. So I hope that today, I did have a little picture of Vision waving goodbye, but I didn't know if that was going to be too much in the end here. So I did take it off. So I hope we've covered enough ground that everybody got something from it, no matter where you are in your life or how familiar you are with vision. And thank you for being here.